You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. This announcement by Trump, he is sending these troops in, sending these federal agents in. These folks are unleashing terror across this country. We cannot ignore what is happening. And I dare say, if you thought Nixon and all of his stuff in '68, I said this on MSNBC this weekend, this is Nixon in '68 on steroids.
Yeah, this is really strange, interesting, and scary. These federal troops, and they're unidentified, they're unannounced, they have unmarked cars, and it's like the military squads in third world countries. I think the attorney generals and as well as the governors of Illinois, or the governor of Illinois, needs to go to court or needs to figure out who these folks are in order to figure out whether they should be there or not and under what authority they are. But you can't do it unchecked. Now, having said that, Chicago's got to do something. The killing fields of Chicago have been there for 10 years or longer. It's always had a gang problem. But you have days where 20, 30, 40, 50 people are being shot, and the funeral where those 15 people were shot was gang-related. The person who died, who was at the funeral, was gang-related, and you still didn't have enough police to stop the drive-by. And so you got to do something. I got to tell you, I don't know why street gangs are legal. I mean, hate speech ain't never been free speech. I don't know why, if you connote or your purpose is connoted with crime, why you can legally or rather legally operate. It makes no sense. And by the way, at some point, you're going to have to put federal or state troops there, shut down those high crime areas where the shootings are taking place, and put some money in there in regard to education, job training, jobs, and entrepreneurship, a combination. But you got to do something, because right now, they're not doing a very good job in Chicago.
But here's the thing there, Teresa, when we talk about what's happening there in Chicago, we cannot ignore the reality of the fundamental problems with that Chicago Police Department. What you have in Chicago, look, I worked there for 6 years. Excuse me. If you let me finish, you will understand. I lived in Chicago for 6 years. And if you understand what happens there, you have a police department that is actually the biggest gang in Chicago. When you had a consent decree when the Obama administration went in, where officers admitted freely using the N-word, talked about beating suspects, what they would also do, Teresa, they would pick up gang members or suspected gang members or people who were not even in gangs, drive them to areas where there was known gang activity and drop them off and make them escape, saying, are you going to talk now? You're going to talk now. What you have is you have massive distrust between the community in Chicago, between communities and the Chicago Police Department. And, Teresa, last point, you have police officers who are still pissed off that they were held accountable in the case of Laquan McDonald, and they have purposely slowed down. They've said they've actually broken antennas on car dash cams, won't turn on body cameras. You have a police department that is in open revolt to accountability, and they like, hey, if it happens, it's on them. Teresa, go ahead.
Chicago is one of several major metropolitan cities that is going through this chaos that President Trump has created. I know our district attorney, our progressive district attorney, Larry Krasner, who's always under the gun for conservative politics and news media, he made a statement, fighting back against this unjust with the statement that President Trump made about federal agents coming into the city, arresting and kidnapping and assaulting by actually pressing charges. And I think that needs to be a downpour of a remake for every other district attorney to be doing, because again, we can't be going backwards. Going back, it's reminding me of a crime drama that we used to see on USA Network, or something that was just so old that our parents used to watch, right? But this is real life right now. And this is not a movie. This is real life where lives are really hanging at the balance. And it just seems like, it's getting worse, because once we start getting into what this election season is actually coming this year, it's really worse that we just don't know what's going to happen next. So it's really up to our progressive district attorneys, our legislators, to really, formulate some sort of plan and really look into that charter and those rules and regulations so they can figure out how to protect us from the federal government.
Robert, on this point here, again, if you start talking about how Trump just unilaterally, I'm sending people in, first and foremost, let's just break this thing down. They're in Chicago. You have the Chicago Police Department. You have the Cook County Sheriff's Department. You have the Illinois State Police. You have massive law enforcement that is at your disposal to be able to have a plan, and then you can have the assistance from the federal government. But this is a guy who's not actually trying to work with the governor and the mayor to deal with it. He wants to actually drive a different conversation, and that's what you're having here. I can tell you, I was at one of the two meetings when he was president, in his first year when he met with media, and it was called, Rahm came in here, to Scott's point, Rahm came in here talking about education and economics. He was like, no, that's not the issue. Well, first of all, that is the issue, and that's also part of the deal here, Robert. Chicago's violence is not a new thing. It is a systemic thing that deals with a variety of factors, which include economics and education. Go ahead.
All right, 3 points that I have to make. One, I was at the Capitol earlier for the CT Vivian visual. Of course, we send our thoughts and prayers to his family, and we have to make sure that we follow in the model and the history and the legacy of Reverend Vivian and also John Lewis. Secondarily, on the Chicago point, I went to law school in Chicago, lived right there in 47th and Drexel for 3 years. There is a systemic problem that cannot be solved by federal troops. Understand that we have a posse comitatus in 1876, which forbids the federal government from sending in troops to United States cities unless it is invited by the local jurisdiction. This is why when President Trump tried to enact the Insurrection Act of 1809, he was not able to do so. It's an empty threat because the local government has to invite them in. So if you want, the reason that we have this current spike in shootings around the country is after the killing of George Floyd and the mass mobilizations, police departments around the country did mass sick-outs. They did the blue flu. They decided they were no longer going to patrol. They were no longer going to do their job. They made the finite decision that if we are not allowed to abuse people, then we will not do our job at all. This is why we're seeing this spike nationwide. It is the police unions allowing these things to happen. At that funeral where 14 people were shot, the police were informed beforehand that there was the potential for violence, and they were aware of it and did nothing because they know exactly what they are doing. So we have to hold them accountable for what they do. And on the preventive side of it, Father Flager has been working on this for decades. Reverend Jesse Jackson's been working on this for decades in Chicago. Jeremiah Wright has been working on this for decades. We know what the solutions are. We know for a fact that if you look at the Magnificent Mile, if you look at Gold Coast, the reason you don't have the number of shootings there that you have in the South Side or the Wild Hunters or on the West Side is because they have the economics do not have those issues. You've changed the economic situation. You've changed the access to transportation, the access to proper jobs, the access to proper housing, not having boarded up buildings and rat-infested slums. None of those guns are just being bought and sold in Chicago. They're coming from across state lines and
Indiana,
into the city. Nobody has a poppy field where they're growing heroin in Chicago. Nobody's growing cocaine in their backyard. So you have to stop the drugs from coming into the cities. So this idea that, these black folks are just crazy and shooting up and tearing up everything. No, it is a systemic issue.
That's what it shows.
100 years of policy in the city, and if you change the system, then you change the outcome.
Well, wait a minute. That's what it shows. It shows black people shooting black people. And Father Flager and Jesse Jackson and you and our host right here, you all want to blame everybody, want to blame the police.
No.
The police are not making gang members shoot each other.
Oh, actually,
shut
Scott,
them down.
Scott.
Because everything you've tried in the last 20, 30 years has not worked.
Scott, here's the
How's that working for you all, blaming the police?
Here's the point that you're missing.
I'm not missing it.
Actually, you are missing the point.
Okay.
They're in Chicago. They're in Chicago. They have had numerous examples of cops shaking down drug dealers.
What does that have to do with
Scott,
gang members?
Will you listen? They actually had they had a facility on Homeland Street that basically was Chicago's Guantanamo Bay. Well, they would take, as the black site, as a lawyer, they would take people to that site. Then the family or someone would say, hey, my relative's been picked up. The lawyer would call Chicago Police Department. There's no record in the system that they actually exist. And the lawyer's going, wait a minute, this guy's been picked up. Where is he? We don't have him in the system. That's one example. Then you also had in Chicago, then you also had there, of course, John Burge and the beatings. What I'm saying is this here. The problem that you have in Chicago is you have such a problem, a level of distrust between community and the police. The community says, I can't trust talking to you because I don't know if you gonna give my name to the gang members. And so the problem is, and hold up, I'm not just done. One second.
Everything you're saying is irrelevant.
No, it's not irrelevant.
Oh, it is.
When McCarthy came in to be the police commissioner, they said, oh, the hell no, we're not letting the outsider come in here. They fought every step of the way. Part of the problem is in order to get the violence under control, there has to be trust with the police department, and that police department is so corrupt, they do not want to do it. They openly have rebelled against Kim Foxx. They openly have rebelled against Lori Lightfoot, and that's what they are. And so that's part of the issue here. Gangs and the police, who's the largest gang in Chicago.
It may be, but I don't see the police officers putting guns in gangbangers' hands and them shooting each other and over turf war. Stop it.
But Scott, if the Chicago cops won't police the areas, then you're not going to shut it down.
Let me tell you why you're wrong. The police are there, they ride around, they get a call of a shooting. They go and they try to solve the crime.
No, they don't.
Hold on.
Scott, you're actually wrong.
I'm a former prosecutor. I've got ride-outs with the police all the time.
Scott,
listen,
Scott, hold up. Hold on, Scott. Have you lived in Chicago?
Yes.
How long you live in Chicago?
I was born in Joliet, Illinois.
I got you. No. Joliet ain't Chicago. Joliet is Joliet. See, right there. That's like saying I'm from Evanston. No. Here's the deal here.
Let me tell you.
But Scott, in Chicago, that's not what the cops are doing.
Listen, every police department gets a call, there's been a shooting. Hold on. I know I can agree with everything you say. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying to you is the killing fields of Chicago are what they are. And everything you're talking about with the police is irrelevant and immaterial. If gangs are getting guns and shooting each other, 25 people a day, all the corruption you're talking about can be true. I don't want to challenge that. What I'm saying to you is until you shut those gangs down and or bring in money to train them, job training, education, and all the other funding that's needed to give gang members an alternative to violence or the gang, they're going to continue. If this is not new, how's everything you talking about on Robert Patel?
I didn't say it was new.
Hold on. How's that working for you?
In fact, Robert and I both said it's not new. Robert, go ahead.
It hasn't helped one bit.
Robert, go ahead.
Shut them down.
Understand. Everything that you are saying was done in the late 90s and early 2000s in Chicago. And guess what it did? Those gangbangers from back then 20 years ago went to prison. Their children grew up in fatherless households. By the time those kids were 13, 14, 15, they were right back in the same damn gangs.
It wasn't sustainable. You got to sustain it with money and resources.
This is what we were talking about, a systemic issue. You are creating the exact same cycle. If you don't change the underlying conditions, you get
blaming the police is not the answer.
Chairs on the Titanic.
You know, you and
Scott, no one is blaming.
No.
What we're doing is we're stating what is actually factual.
And it's irrelevant.
When you can't act like the cops had no part of this. Look, bottom line, Teresa, you're in Philadelphia. It's the same thing here. You can't divorce the lack of action, the lack of concern by police, deliberately slowing down, not really wanting to investigate crimes. Chicago has one of the lowest criminal clearance rates in the country. Why?
Agreed. So in Philadelphia, we had to bring in another outside police commissioner because of the corruption, because of the lack of policing and community relations. And so we needed an outside source, and we have Commissioner Danielle Outlaw, first African-American woman who's actually in that position, appointed. And she's coming in with fresh ideas. She's coming in with a fresh perspective. But the most important thing is she has come in with a vision in order to change the current system. And in order to do that, she had to put her boots to the ground and started talking to, external relations, the community. She was out there during the protests, but she's been doing a lot of in-house training. And also, I believe today it was that the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus actually had a conversation about the police reforms. And so what's outlined, which I think if we had another commissioner probably still would have stand, about some of those roles of what they can do and some of those policies that they can change internally. So part of it is if you have a corrupt system, it does take an outside look and an outside influence in order to create internal change.
Again,
if there was no police department in Chicago whatsoever, the killing fields of Chicago would continue. So your corruption arguments, while they may appear to be appealing, they aren't, because police solve crimes. They don't prevent them. At least most police departments.
Actually,
the killings would continue.
No. Actually, you're wrong there. The reality is this, Scott. Police can prevent crimes. Police can prevent crimes. No. Police can prevent crimes based upon their interaction with communities. What I'm telling you, the situation in Chicago is so bad, the level of distrust that exists between the community and the cops is real. This is the Chicago Sun-Times right here. This is what it says. A visibly shaken Mayor Lori Lightfoot on Wednesday joined police officials in pleading for witnesses to tell police what they know about a shooting outside a gang funeral that left 15 people shot. This is what she said. We cannot give the killers, the shooters, any shelter. Someone listening at this moment knows who is responsible for these and other crimes. I implore you not to be silent in this moment. I recognize there is fear, but if we are silent, the violence will continue. This is our time to step up. We are the majority. We're the people who will change this narrative, but only if the silence is broken. Part of the silence, which we can't deny, is that community, they've said, we don't trust sharing the information with police because we know cops who share it with gangs.
That may be accurate.
Doc, so if you're in the neighborhood, you're like, I don't trust them.
How's all that working for you all? The killing fields continue. Why not go in and shut them down with federal or state troops? Shut down the high shooting areas, the high murder rate areas. Shut down the gangs until you can get a handle.
Robert, final comment before I go to my coronavirus guest. Go.
Look, Scott, the reason is because we know that doesn't work. You have to you have to cure the problem at its roots. And look, understand, you have a police department in Chicago that just got done covering for the killings of Laquan McDonald. Then they spent a year going after Juicy Smollett, and then you found the police commissioner, Sloppy Eddie, passed out in his car. So why would you think that police department is about to prosecute any criminals, and instead of doing something,
I said federal
about fixing the problem?
And state troops.
The Chicago Police Department has a fundamental problem, and that is folks don't trust them in this. No, I'm sorry. Let me correct that. White folks trust the police department.
So, Roland, what's the answer?
1 second.
What's the answer?
No, the answer is one of the things you have to do is you have to bring in first of all, they have a new police chief there, and what you have to do is you have to simply say, we have got to get rid of a bunch of folks in this department who are not concerned about the community. They are concerned about protecting themselves. And that is going to require courage and looking the union in the eye and saying, if they do wrong, if they break those dash cam, those antennas, don't turn cameras on, and if they lie in reports, they're gone. You got to have some trust. All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.